fifth week of the season of Lent. Next week we'll be actually celebrating the beginning of Holy Week with Palm Sunday. And so now we come to the conclusion of this series that started 4 weeks ago, a series entitled Be Healed. Back then we looked at the word heal itself, coming from the word essential, to be the person we are meant to be, ultimately in the eyes of God, versus that which is sick. We suffer affliction, suffering itself, and we make the remark, I don't feel like myself. I don't feel as I should be. And so we take that first step towards healing. We admit it. Something's wrong. I'm not the best version of myself. And in humility, we take the second step. We go and see the doctor, whose mission is healing, whose mission is restoration. And we tell the doctor everything. We hold nothing back. There's nothing for us to hide. And so with the doctor, we have that plan of action in the third step. And we take our medicine. Medicine has a twofold power to it. When it treats the sickness, it treats the affliction, it draws out the affliction from us. Medicine is also preventative. We take medicine so that the sickness will not be able to come before us again. We have resistance to it. But even after we take our medicine and the sickness is drawn out, we've been weakened. We got to get the body back into shape again. And so we take that fourth step, which is rehab, rehabilitation, to have back. Rehabilitation helps us to get back to being the person we are meant to be. And yet suffering is involved in this step. But suffering has a purpose. Christ on the cross, suffering has a purpose. Even here in John's Gospel, the Lord makes this remark, it was for this purpose that I came to this hour. He has a purpose. And the Lord lets it be known to us that this purpose here is so that I will draw everyone to myself. That's the purpose of his suffering. Rehab, it gets us back on the right track. It gets us back into right relationship with God. And last week we used the example of the person of St. Paul and the spiritual rehab. All that he went through, the suffering, to get him back into right relationship with God. Now we've come through all those steps and we think that now I'm done. I'm back to healing. Sickness has been drawn out. I strengthened my body again. I'm good to go. Well, not true. Now the fifth step and the final step to healing, which probably is the toughest. And yet it is the step that is most needed. And it is this. You got to keep going. You can't stop. You can't quit on the road to healing. You can't ease up on it. You can't take a break. You got to keep going. It's not over with. Healing doesn't end when your rehab is officially over. Your therapy is officially over. You gotta keep going. We've been on the path now of healing for so long. We're doing everything right. You're doing everything that you need to do. And then, here it comes. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we'll admit this. And then there's that one day, after weeks and after months of rehab, and you're really feeling good. I mean, you're really back in shape. And then it's true. we make this one decision. You decide that the next day you're going to take a break. You're going to take a break, and you call it a reward to yourself for doing so good. You haven't missed a day, you haven't missed an hour of rehabbing, strengthening your body, getting you back to where you should be. And so you decide to reward yourself for all that you've been through, and the next day you take a break. And it feels good, doesn't it? You know, I don't have to do an hour's worth or 2 hours worth of, stretching, running, moving your legs, moving your arms, moving your body, whatever rehab that you're going through. And it feels good, doesn't it? You took the day off. And then here it is. What might happen then the day after that? Well, what's 2 days? I mean, I've been at this for months. But 2 days is not going to ruin anything. So, you take the second day off. It's like eating Pringles. Okay, you can't eat just 1 or 2 Pringles. So, what do you then do after the second day that you've taken off? Anybody know the answer to that question? You take the third day off. And then, well, why not finish out the week? And then it goes to 2 weeks, because you went on vacation. You don't work on vacation, do you? And then those 2 weeks turn into a month. And then that 1 month turns into 3 months. And the 3 months turn into 6 months. And the 6 months turn into a year. And then you come to that point where you just don't feel right. Where you just don't feel like yourself. And then you admit that you're sick again. And you have to go through the whole process all over. And then we may say to ourselves, if I had but just kept going, I wouldn't be in this situation again. How many of us have experienced that in our lives? Probably more than one of us here. The 5th step can be summed up in one word, and that word is this: perseverance. You gotta keep it up. Perseverance, and look that up, you know me, wanted to find out what that word means. Perseverance actually comes from the word severe. But that severe is an intensified severe. And the word severe itself means strict or drawn tight. But it's very intense. Did you ever get like a knot in your shoe? And when you're pulling your shoelace loose and you get that knot in your shoe, and it's that kind of knot you don't want to get because it takes you forever. You have to get the jaws of life to get that knot undone. That's perseverance. That's perseverance. You're strict, you're tight. You know you cannot give up. You can't give up. You stick with it, no matter what. You gotta stick with it on the road to healing. Because, and we've always told our children and our grandchildren, well, in my days when we actually had shoelaces, now everything is that Velcro stuff, you just flip it over and it's like that. But we used to tell our children and our grandchildren, what would happen when your shoelace became untied. Of course, we would tell them, tie your shoelace. Why? because they don't want to trip and fall. And so we can't loosen up in doing the work of God. You can't do it. Because we know if we do, we're going to get sick. It's called sin. There is this saying, the road of life has no parking spots. You got to keep going. Christ on the way to Calvary, there was no parking spot for him. There was no rest area. Imagine if Jesus said, you know, I think I've done enough to pay for the debt of our sins. You know, I think I've walked long enough. You know what? I think I'm going to quit midway through my walk to Calvary. I mean, hey, I'm God. You know, I did it. But we know the truth. Because Christ, in his humanity, on the road for our healing, he had to persevere. In his humanity, he had to persevere. He couldn't give up. He couldn't take the easy way out. He had to go to the end. And we need to understand that. Christ in his humanity, he went to the end for me. I was that sick. Shouldn't that evoke within us, you know what? I myself, I can't quit. Lord, I need to stick with it. I need to stick with you. I can't give up this road to healing, this road of freedom from sin. I can't go back to sin. Well, that's why you died on the cross for me. Our bodies, they need to keep going. Even in sleep, our bodies need to keep going. Say if our heart stops while we're sleeping, we know what happens to us. We die. Our minds need to keep going. This brain of ours, those electrical impulses, if they don't work, we're going to die. It needs to keep going. Our spirit needs to keep going. If I make the choice where I don't need to rely on God at this moment, I die forever. Not that I die in that moment. I die forever. If I make the choice, I don't need God. I'm done with him. I learned my prayers. I got my sacraments. I don't need God anymore. I die forever. That's why what St. Paul says is so important for us. Pray. Pray without ceasing. Can't stop. Got to keep going. Now, true. There may be those times when we need rest. And we do. We need to recharge, we need to re-energize, we need to restore ourselves, rebuild ourselves, renew ourselves. Even God himself rested. Called it a Sabbath. Even God saw the value of Sabbath. But the rest, the Sabbath that the Lord is giving to us is never to mean to disconnect. To disconnect from what we need to do, from what we need to persevere in doing. And at times, that rest, that Sabbath, gives us a better observation, a better evaluation of what we are doing, and to make the assessment of, can I be a better version of myself? Rest does have its place. Sabbath does have its place. And the Lord wants us to accept that gift of Sabbath. He wants it for us. We are at a time with this COVID pandemic where we have been tempted to say, I'm done. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. We've been there. Maybe we still are. I quit. I don't care anymore. And that response is understandable. That is, let's face it, that's understandable. Yet, authentic healing means to take that most important step of all. Gotta persevere. Gotta stick with it. Gotta stay strong. Knowing that in sickness, we are never alone. We may feel like it. We may feel like it. We're never alone. Christ wasn't. Christ was never alone in his life. Christ was never alone. Even in here. He was never alone. The way to healing always has its support buddy. Someone who is with you. Someone who encourages you and says, you can do this. I'm here with you. I've got your back. You see, that's the power of a parish family. We hang in there with each other. And we stay strong because of each other. We can do this. Stay connected. The path to healing. First step, got to admit it. Second step, go see the doctor. The third step, take your medicine. The fourth step, do your rehab. And your fifth step, persevere. Don't stop. Stick with it. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, there is so much more to say about healing. We know that there are libraries filled with books on healing. And so I know there's no way in these past 5 weeks that I could have explained everything that there is about healing. And yet I do hope that you were able to take away at least one thing from these past 5 weeks. But I do ask you to remember this one thing. God has come to heal us of all affliction. There is only one thing that he has ever asked of all of us to accomplish that purpose of his. And the one thing that the Lord keeps asking of us is come after.